Thank you all so much for being a part of this session with us in Arrosoft. Today we're going to talk about Virtuozzo hybrid infrastructure and why it's an ideal platform for VMware replacement. My name is Eric Liu. I'm the global product strategist here in Arrosoft, looking after all of our products, and I'm going to be taking you through some of the reasons why we feel Virtuozzo is a ideal platform, a perfect platform if you're looking at getting out of your VMware environment. Okay. Now, for many of you in this call, Arrosoft is probably a new name in the market, so I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about who we are and what we do. So Arrosoft, we're built on three key, three key pillars. Our key criteria or our key aim in the world is to firstly help our partners protect data, to help them recover their customers' businesses, and also to empower our partners with not only new solutions, but new business models such as pay-per-use and managed services and everything as a service. So we operate out of these blue dots here today. So we have offices today in the US, which is our global HQ, in Taiwan, which is our Asia Pacific HQ. Myself, I'm based out of Malaysia. We have teams in India, Singapore, Hong Kong, Vietnam, and also in Japan. And we have partners around the world that we support, including in nearly every continent, including in South America, in South Africa, in Africa, in Europe, as well as in the Middle East and the rest of Asia Pacific. So we support our partners through our wide range of solution sets that cover four key pillars. So we have pillars in production, which is where data lives on a day-to-day basis, right? And that includes the solution that we'll be talking to you about today called Virtuozzo. We also cover the backup and disaster recovery pillars, which solutions in covering all of these different brands, including Veeam, Commvault, Acronis, and our very own Cloud Any solution, which I'll talk to you about, as well as in cyber protection, where we have Arrosoft branded solutions such as AirGap and Stealth, and also industry well-known solutions such as Arctic Security and SentinelOne. One of the key differentiators about Arrosoft is that everything that we do today, we can provide as a service or as a fully managed service. So not only does Arrosoft support you in terms of the product capability and licensing, but we also support you in terms of the actual pre-sales and even deployment and managed services to enable you to deploy and operate these solutions end-to-end for your customers. Another key advantage of working with Arrosoft is that we provide the commitments to the principals to get very large discount levels that we then pass back to our partners. So with a lot of these brands moving on to the MSP model today, they require very high commitments from the partners in order to get these discounts. So we represent our partner community to make these commitments to our principals like Veeam, Commvault, Acronis, and SentinelOne to get these discounts ahead of time, and then to pass these discounts back to our partners so that you become more competitive in the markets and the deals that you're participating in. So that's really Arrosoft in a nutshell. I don't want to spend too much time talking about Arrosoft, and I really want to get into the meat and potatoes of today's presentation, which is to talk about Virtuozzo. What is Virtuozzo? Why you should consider Virtuozzo, especially if you're looking to get out of the VMware platform. Okay, so as many of you know, and I'm sure if you're attending this session, you probably are very familiar already with VMware. You're well aware of the changes that have been made since Broadcom acquired the brand, right? And many of your customers today are probably also looking for alternatives to VMware. And this is a recurring trend that we've been seeing happening in the ASEAN market over the last 12 to 18 months. Now, the reasons to migrate off of VMware are many, right? And this is a non-comprehensive list listed here, but it is some of the more popular or more common ones that you will see. First and foremost is that VMware is forcing bundling, and also following that up with massive price increases. We have seen subscription renewals increase on the order of 1,000%. even for very large customers. And Broadcom are not the easiest sales team to deal with. They're not very flexible. So many customers are getting quite, I would say, unhappy with the situation since Broadcom has taken over VMware. Partners are also similarly impacted. Many have been ejected from the VMware partner programs, forcing them to buy from either competitors or making them less competitive in the market, or actually reducing the margins that they used to enjoy when doing the VMware business. And also one of the things that we have seen happen with products that Broadcom takes over is that they generally tend to reduce development over time on those products. So the products become less competitive over time. They become less stable, right? And also the quality of service and support starts to decline over time. VMware is not the first software company that Broadcom has acquired. You know, they have purchased several in the past years, and this happens to be a recurring trend, right? So for these reasons, many partners such as yourselves in this call have started looking for, hey, what can we do in terms of helping our customers move off of VMware? And you know there are many solutions out in the market that also proclaim themselves to be VMware replacement. Now, I'm sure many of you, as you have started on this journey to look for a VMware replacement platform, you have run into certain challenges as well, right? Even us in Arrosoft, as we went out into the market looking for VMware replacement platforms, we found that there were many options, but not all options are built the same. We had our own lessons learned in this search as well, right? Now, one of the biggest challenges of any VMware replacement that we see in the market is that many of them force the customer to change the solution architecture. If you want to run certain VMware replacement platforms, like Nutanix, like Scale Computing, right? Like Big Stack, like Sandfor, you have to run it in a hyper-converged environment, which means typically new hardware investments, and that also means that you need to get rid of your SAN storage. So this makes it not only very complex, but it forces customers to spend more money to also have to do a hardware refresh at the same time. A lot of these hyper-converged platforms also come with limited hardware support or hardware lock-in. For example, certain brands of hyperconverged are only certified to run on certain brands of hardware. So you are forced to buy those hardware. Some of these platforms even mandate specific models of hardware with specific specifications that are sold at a higher price by the hardware vendors because they know you are locked in. And if you want to run this hyperconverged platform, you must use this model. So that not only increases the cost, but it also takes away the flexibility of reusing your existing hardware, and that drives up the complexity of doing a VMware replacement. Many VMware replacement platforms have limited functionality. They are not quite a one-to-one replacement of VMware, especially if you are using, I guess, the wider VMware architecture. Like if you have a VMware vSAN, if you have a VMware NSX, if you're using a vCloud Director, then many of these platforms may not have a component that meets all of these requirements. And of course, many of them have very complex licensing and costs. So what we have seen happen in the market is that as our partners start to go into this VMware replacement exercise or research, and they find these VMware alternatives, but when they test it out, they find that there are so many I would say roadblocks or hurdles or limitations, the customers generally don't like to accept it. The biggest challenge we've always seen is that forcing a customer to change into a new hardware architecture, forcing them to change to new hardware, that becomes the biggest hurdle. So we had our own learnings. And because of that, we also started looking for a VMware replacement platform that we feel meets our customers' needs in the best way possible. And for that, we actually decided to work with Virtuozzo. So Virtuozzo may be a new brand for many of you, but they are not a new brand in the industry per se. So Virtuozzo is a 24-year-old company, right? And it's surprising that many of us have not heard about it because Virtuozzo has in the past not been very focused in talking to the end user. They have built a very strong business selling an entire public cloud platform to public cloud providers. Their main customers have always been the cloud service providers, the people who build the public cloud, sell it out as a vCPU, as a VM, as storage, but the underlying architecture is entirely built on Virtuozzo. Because of the changes that Broadcom made into VMware, Virtuozzo felt that this was the right time to enter the market to bring this platform now into the SMB and into the enterprise space, right? But they are not a new company. They have nearly 700 channel and service provider partners. Some of these are very well-known brand names that you see down here. In fact, Acronis, which is one of the biggest backup and disaster recovery cloud services in the world, the back end runs on Virtuozzo. Virtuozzo today supports over 700,000 cloud servers. They have 300 over employees in various countries, right? They have presence here in Asia Pacific in these countries, including Singapore, Japan, Thailand, and Malaysia. They have nearly 40% market penetration on the platform for hosting providers. And not only that, they are also big in developing new capabilities for their platform. And you will see how Virtuozzo today can actually not only provide VMware capabilities, but even improve upon VMware capabilities. Okay, so Virtuozzo actually not only provides a hypervisor like VMware does, but it provides actually a full stack of infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and anything as a service. And we'll introduce all of these to you over the next few slides. Okay. So what is Virtuozzo hybrid infrastructure? Now, if you look at what Virtuozzo actually does is, Virtuozzo provides a hypervisor called the Virtuozzo KVM hypervisor. And like the name mentions, it's built on open source KVM. So it has great supportability, it has great compatibility, and it's a very mature platform. Virtuozzo also provides Virtuozzo storage platform, which we'll talk a bit more about later. And Virtuozzo also provides support for third-party storage, including SAN storage. So for any customers who are not looking to move off of SAN storage or don't like the idea of having to adopt hyperconverged infrastructure just because they want to replace VMware, Virtuozzo is a very good option. On top of the basic infrastructure layer, Virtuozzo has built a full stack of platform built on OpenStack that includes multi-tenancy for a full private cloud and public cloud self-service experience. They provide the full end-to-end orchestration that not only orchestrates the Virtuozzo services, but also orchestrates the hardware components and has also integrated software-defined network. And they also have a very rich metering and monitoring platform built using open source Prometheus and Grafana. On top of this hardware infrastructure, OpenStack platform, that's where the power comes. The Virtuozzo hybrid infrastructure is literally an end-to-end data center platform. Literally anything that you need, any service you need to provide in your enterprise class data center can be built on top of Virtuozzo hybrid infrastructure. That includes compute services. This is your VMware replacement, right? This is your VMs, your vCPU, your RAM. Virtuozzo also provides Kubernetes integrated into the platform. So you do not need to even adopt a separate platform for Kubernetes for your DevOps. Is already a part of Virtuozzo. It provides object storage. So if you need to have data archival, you need to have compliance, you need to have data lakes, the object storage is already built into Virtuozzo. And various infrastructure or data center services are already included in the whole platform. That includes load balancing services, backup services, identity services, image management services, and VPN services. So literally, if you think about these services that you can build on top of Virtuozzo, that is a part of the Virtuozzo platform is literally 90% of what most enterprise data centers will require. Virtuozzo has also fully integrated all of this into a single self-service UI with ability for multi-tenancy for internal users, a single admin panel, so one management tool to manage everything, no need to look at multiple different consoles, single pane of glass, and a single API stack using OpenStack for best supportability and full control of the entire stack. So when we talk about Virtuozzo, we're not only talking about a hypervisor, we literally are talking about the entire platform of capabilities and services that Virtuozzo can provide. Now, Eric, this is too confusing. I don't understand any of this. What does it mean to me as a VMware user? How does the Virtuozzo stack map to VMware? And this is how I simplify it for my VMware customers and partners to put it in a language that's easy for you to understand. If you are using VMware vSphere Hypervisor, right? If you are using VMware vCenter Management Server, if you have some form of VMware Hyperconverge, and you have VMware vSAN licenses, or if you are using VMware Software-Defined Networking SDN with VMware NSX, or you're looking at containers or cloud with VMware Tanzu or VMware vCloud Director, all of the capabilities of these different VMware modules are available in Virtuozzo. The key differentiator here is with VMware, you buy different modules, you pay for different licenses, and each different license has a different way of charging. Some are by per core, some are per instance, some are by storage, some are by different methods of calculating. All of that goes away into one simple, easy, accessible, and affordable platform called Virtuozzo. So Virtuozzo today delivers all of the capabilities that are available in each one of these different VMware solutions with one platform, one license fully integrated, right? And that's really where the simplicity comes in. You do not need to manually migrate, manually rebuild, reintegrate all of the work, the many years of hard work that you have spent building this complex VMware environment. Virtuozzo has already pre-built that for you. Deploy via Virtuozzo hybrid infrastructure and migrate the VMs across, and you're done. And in fact, the last few slides of this presentation, I'll even show you the simplest way to do this VMware migration into Virtuozzo. Arrosoft actually created a tool for that. We'll talk about that at the end of the presentation. So let's talk a bit about how does Virtuozzo differ and improve upon VMware across each of these different categories of capabilities, right? So in compute, Virtuozzo has many of the VMware capabilities, including VMware HA, high availability, and also adds on some additional capabilities. For example, you can actually do a zero downtime online VM resize. Change the configuration of the VM without downtime in Virtuozzo. VMware allows CPU overcommit, but doesn't allow memory overcommit. Virtuozzo allows memory overcommit. This could help you reduce costs of buying physical RAM because physical RAM can be very expensive. Virtuozzo has Kubernetes integrated. There's no additional license and no additional package that needs to be installed. It's in the platform. And at the same time, VMware Virtuozzo also supports VM Live migration, or better known as vMotion. So many of the capabilities that you're familiar with and enjoy in VMware are in Virtuozzo, and Virtuozzo adds on additional capabilities. Virtuozzo has also added snapshot-based backup capabilities into the platform so that you do not need to purchase additional backup licenses if all you require is just snapshots. We can even create application consistent snapshots and also has GPU support. So not only is Virtuozzo as a starting point of your VMware replacement, it can be your final goal enterprise platform if you're looking to deliver in the future, AI apps or machine learning or big data analytics requiring GPU support. All of that is already available inside the Virtuozzo platform. So we look at VMware as a baseline and then we add on capabilities on top of VMware. Okay, it does more than VMware does today. Virtuozzo Storage also provides you a software-defined storage platform that can literally meet all of your entire enterprise storage requirements. For example, Virtuozzo Storage can provide all-flash storage or hybrid storage with tiering. So the ability to do high-performance disks and low-performance, low-cost disks in the same volume, and have Virtuozzo manage hot data will stay in the high-performance SSDs, and cold data, less frequently accessed data will be automatically moved off into the lower performance, lower cost disks to drive down the cost per terabyte of your storage. Virtuozzo supports replication and erasure coding for maximum protection of the data that you store in the Virtuozzo storage platform. We can have online extension for VM volume, so ability to increase your VM volume size without downtime on the storage. Virtuozzo supports not only block storage through iSCSI and Fiber Channel, but also object storage through Amazon S3 compatible API, and also file storage. So now you have all flash, hybrid, block storage via iSCSI, S3 storage, and file storage for your file servers. That's literally any storage requirement you will need for your entire enterprise already built into Virtuozzo. Virtuozzo supports not only data at rest encryption, but also data in transit encryption. It supports high performance with RDMA, right? And the S3 object storage is also optimized for high performance for data and analytics. So Virtuozzo, even though today we are talking about it as a VMware replacement platform, truly does a lot more than just what VMware does. Then we also get into networking. So software-defined networking, or SDN, is already pre-built into the Virtuozzo platform. There's no need for you to buy specific switches. There's no need for you to pay additional software licenses like VMware NSX or Cisco ACI, right? It's all already built into the platform, which means that from the get-go, from the time that you install Virtuozzo, you have the ability to do virtual networks, distributed switching, virtual routing, IPv6 support, DHCP and IP management, load balancing and VPN are already built into Virtuozzo SDN. So you can have load balancing and VPN services already provided. Security groups is how you segmentize and protect the different tenants and projects within your Virtuozzo environment, right? Very similar to VPCs in the AWS style of networking. And Virtuozzo also provides micro-segmentation support, very similar to VMware NSX. So as you can see, in terms of the full data center architecture, where you have compute services, storage services, and networking services, all of this is already part of the base Virtuozzo environment. There's no need for additional licenses, no need for additional software install. It's all there already. But it doesn't stop there, right? So Virtuozzo didn't just stop at that, but also included a full clustered management console for all components. So that means you have high availability on the management. You have a single management console, single pane of glass management for everything. No need to open different consoles, to manage different modules. No need to create custom scripts to orchestrate between different management tools, Virtuozzo already provides a single pane of glass management out of the get-go. And guess what? There is no cost. You do not have to pay for a vCenter license. You do not have to pay for a management license. It is already part of the platform. It is included, right? Virtuozzo is also 100% OpenStack compatible, API compatible. So scripting using automation tools like Terraform, right, becomes very natural with an OpenStack API. They also provide a command line interface if you require to do custom scripting. Advanced monitoring and metering is provided using an open source platform called Prometheus and Grafana. So these are very powerful, very customizable metering platforms that can be used to monitor very detailed functions and metrics within the Virtuozzo platform. You can go down to the level of monitoring, even down to your disk queues, your IOPS, your network MB per second, in and out. All that details are available to be monitored within Virtuozzo, right? For full visibility of what the platform is doing at any given time. Virtuozzo, because it's designed to be a cloud service provider platform. Now, why I keep talking about the cloud service provider platform is because if you imagine being a cloud service provider where your one cloud platform has got hundreds of tenants with thousands of VMs running on it, and any downtime impacts these thousands of VMs and hundreds of customers, your cloud service provider platform has to be able to operate literally with zero downtime. And that is the aim that Virtuozzo has achieved. And now they're bringing that into the enterprise space. What that means is that the Virtuozzo platform is designed to operate with minimal or no downtime required. And the features to support that include, for example, maintenance mode, the ability to put a single Virtuozzo node into a maintenance mode, and then Virtuozzo will automatically move off the VMs using live migration or vMotion into other nodes. So no VM downtime. You can take that node offline, you can refresh that node, you can upgrade or update that node, and then put that node back into the cluster, take it off maintenance mode, and Virtuozzo will rebalance the VMs back into the node. The end result is that no downtime on your VM and services, right? Also, the ability to do a rolling Kubernetes cluster update ensures that if you're running Kubernetes services on Virtuozzo, right, physical updates of the hardware will not impact. Software updates of the Kubernetes cluster will not impact your Kubernetes services. So all of this is with the intention of reducing or completely eliminating the downtime of VM and container services in your environment to ensure zero downtime. Virtuozzo is also designed to be, like I said before, a cloud service provider platform, which means that multi-tenancy and self-service are built in. So if at some point in the future, your enterprise customer wants to adopt a full private cloud, or they want to segmentize their IT resources by department and allow their department admins to manage their own resources, that capability is already in Virtuozzo. There's no need to purchase additional licenses like vCloud Director and integrate and create the workflows. All of that is already done. So in Virtuozzo, they already provide a self-service portal, right, for internal users or for public cloud users. The networks and the projects are already isolated on the tenant level. So if you segregate resources or VMs or data between different departments, each department cannot see each other. And they can also allocate different admins and role-based access control on a tenant level so that you can determine what you want each of the different tenant admins to do and what their capabilities are. And Virtuozzo also allows custom branding for their self-service portal. So instead of seeing the Virtuozzo logo, you can actually see your customer's brand, and makes it look like as if it's their own private cloud. Okay. So that's how Virtuozzo not only, I guess, deliver upon VMware capabilities, but really exceed and deliver so much more than just the traditional VMware hypervisor. Virtuozzo Hybrid Infrastructure literally is the end-to-end VMware platform in one single license, in one single architecture. So on top of just that, Virtuozzo has also built in additional services such as multi-tenant backup. So without paying for third-party backup solutions, built within the Virtuozzo platform is already a snapshot-based backup capability that is already perfect for just simple protection of your VMs. If you don't need to store, data for many years for compliance reasons, you just want to store maybe, several months of weekly backups, or you want to store, snapshots of your VMs that you can recover very quickly, then that capability is already built into Virtuozzo through their multi-tenant backup. So Virtuozzo Backup provides crash consistent backup that is easily used and easily managed. It utilizes the secure storage built within the Virtuozzo platform. You can choose between S3 or NFS, or you can even back it up to external storage. Restoration is seamless from within the Virtuozzo management portal. And you also have the ability to provide quota and metering options so that your users don't utilize the allocated resources that you have assigned for them. The whole idea of Virtuozzo, including this multi-tenant backup, is really to help our customers reduce the total cost of ownership. So the more things we can pack into one license, into one architecture, into one platform with one installation, the less third-party solutions your customer needs to buy, the lower your total cost of ownership. All right. So Virtuozzo calls themselves the enterprise-ready OpenStack. Now, one of the issues that many of our, I guess, enterprise customers especially, right, as they look into open source and try to get into the open source world, one of the problems they face is the lack of support. Open source is a great platform, right? Great solutions, very low cost, but support is not guaranteed because everything is community-based. So what Virtuozzo have done is that they have taken the best technology, which is the open source platform technologies, and OpenStack, built on top of OpenStack, utilize the best features of OpenStack, including their commonality, including the APIs, right? Add on their capabilities, for example, add on Virtuozzo specific capabilities like management, like backup, like Kubernetes features, and then wrap everything with Virtuozzo support. So not only do you get the best of open source, you get the best of enterprise class support, and you get the best of enterprise class hardware. So any hardware that supports Red Hat Enterprise Linux can be supported with Virtuozzo. So you have the flexibility of using open source technology with enterprise class support from Virtuozzo themselves, and no hardware lock-in because you can use any brand of hardware that supports Red Hat Enterprise Linux. And literally, any hardware today supports Red Hat Enterprise Linux. That is why we feel that today, for all of these capabilities, Virtuozzo is one of the best platforms to consider if you're looking at a VMware replacement platform. Okay, moving on. So let's look at the physical architecture, right? Now, Virtuozzo can be deployed in several ways. And for me, I guess, if nothing else, this is probably the biggest advantage of Virtuozzo today, is the flexibility in which they allow you to deploy. So Virtuozzo can be in a compute-only mode. Now, this means that if all you want to do is to replace your VMware hypervisor with another hypervisor without changing your physical architecture, without changing your hardware, without getting rid of your SAN, you can deploy Virtuozzo in a hypervisor only mode to replace VMware and only give you VM capability. You can deploy Virtuozzo in a storage only mode to deploy Virtuozzo as a SAN replacement, right? To only give you storage services and still use your traditional physical hardware. If you're running VMware, you can still run it with Virtuozzo storage. If you're running Hyper-V, you can run it with Virtuozzo storage. And Virtuozzo storage, as we talked about earlier, provides block, file, and object, any storage you need for your entire IT environment. And Virtuozzo can also deploy in a full stack, compute with storage, where Virtuozzo provides the hypervisor, the compute services, and the storage services. And this is going to be done in a hyper-converged manner. So over the next few slides, we'll be talking about the Virtuozzo hyper-converged infrastructure architecture. And the HCI architecture is required to deliver storage only and compute with storage. If all you want is just compute only, you do not need to deploy in HCI mode. You can just deploy it in your traditional server plus SAN mode. Okay, so the next few slides we'll talk about hyperconverged infrastructure to deliver storage only or compute with storage services. So what does it mean when Virtuozzo talks about hyperconverged infrastructure, right? So like all HCI in the market, Virtuozzo supports HCI, which means that you start with physical servers, and these physical servers will typically be larger servers with a lot of disk, because the CPU, the RAM, and the disk in those servers will all be combined together into a cluster to provide the resources for your compute and storage services. The flexibility of Virtuozzo is that you can use any hardware, any brand that supports Red Hat Enterprise Linux, and you can start with as small as one node. Of course, one node, you will not have any high availability. For production environments, for high availability, we always recommend that you start with minimum 3 nodes, right, for HA. And of course, you can scale out to nearly limitless number of nodes within the same cluster, and you can mix and match different configurations of nodes within the same cluster as well. So on top of Virtuozzo will take the physical servers and combine them together using an IP network via a network switch. We of course recommend 10, 25, or 100G networks for high performance, especially if you're doing storage services, right? And then on top of this, right, Virtuozzo will build the hyperconverged software layer. So that hyperconverged software layer is where you install the Virtuozzo software license, and that software license will combine all of the different resources in these servers and present them out as discrete software-defined compute resources, which is your VMs, which is your vCPU and your memory. It will present them out as software-defined storage, so you can carve out iSCSI volumes and S3 volumes and NSF volumes, and also your software-defined network services, right? All of these are built on top of included Red Hat Enterprise Linux-based OS. So Virtuozzo was built on top of RHEL with KVM virtualization and OpenStack-based services. So everything is open source based. So from here, you now already have that full hyperconverged infrastructure stack, and you can start to build your services. So what services can you build on top of Virtuozzo? So of course, you can build your VMs, your storage, your SDN, your Kubernetes, right, for one tenant. or one virtual data center, one VDC, and it will have its own self-service web UI portal. You can create this for multiple different tenants, or in the case of enterprise customers, each of these tenants could be a discrete department. Example, maybe finance, HR, core banking, for example. And so each one of these tenants will have their own isolated resources, isolated admin logins, role-based access controls, isolated VMs, Kubernetes, and they can run within these tenants any way that they want with full privacy, and there is no like data leakage or data sharing between the tenants by default, because that is controlled by the software-defined network. But not only in terms of delivering combined compute and storage services, you can also deliver standalone storage services, where you can deliver a standalone object storage or a standalone iSCSI SAN or an NFS file server, right, to be shared by the employees of the entire company, or even to be shared with other bare metal servers that are outside of the Virtuozzo stack. So in this one picture, you can already see all the different services that Virtuozzo allows you to create using industry standard, brand agnostic standard servers. And everything is managed with one administrator, one single pane of glass management. Okay. So that is pretty much standard hyper-converged architecture if you want to deploy Virtuozzo either for storage only or compute and storage. Now, in terms of the storage architecture, Virtuozzo is designed to be a full storage platform, right? It delivers a software-defined storage solution, as I said, that delivers block, file, object, and container storage. Now, Virtuozzo, unlike some of the other hyper-converged platforms out there, is designed to be very I/O performance-centric. So data locality, like Nutanix, data locality is provided by Virtuozzo. So for the partners here who are going into Nutanix tenders, and you run into the data locality tender spec, Virtuozzo can definitely help you there. And Virtuozzo is designed to use SSD cache, parallel IOs, RDMA to really drive the performance of not only their block and file, but also their object storage capabilities. High availability is built in, fault tolerance is built in, right? So think of Virtuozzo storage services really as an enterprise class end-to-end storage for anything that your enterprise customer may need. So Virtuozzo storage is designed to be easily scalable. You can scale up or scale out either ways. So if you want performance, add more CPU, RAM, add SSD for caching. You want capacity, add additional capacity drives. You want to scale out to more nodes, add entire nodes that come with more drives. So flexibility of scaling is built into Virtuozzo to make it very easy and very low cost to start the environment. You don't have to buy fully loaded servers. Scale within the first 3 nodes, and then when you run out of disk base or you run out of drive base, then you add additional nodes and you scale that way. So scalability is very simple and very flexible with Virtuozzo. So Virtuozzo storage, as we mentioned earlier, can be used to deploy several different kinds of storage services, including block, file, and object, S3 object storage, and iSCSI SAN. So you can deploy block, file, and object to be used by your Virtuozzo platform. So if you're running Virtuozzo HCI, your Virtuozzo hyperconverged, your VMs can use the Virtuozzo storage in the Virtuozzo platform. You can use it as a file share or as a web share or as an archival storage area through the S3 and NFS protocol. So this you just present out as S3 volumes or file volumes through NFS, right? To be shared by network-based applications or network-based users. And you can also present it out as a standalone block storage through iSCSI as a SAN to be used by other platforms. For example, if you have other bare metal servers, if you have a VMware cluster somewhere else that still needs to have storage access to iSCSI SAN, or a Hyper-V cluster that needs access to iSCSI SAN, you can also use Virtuozzo in that manner. And the best part is, all three methods of deployment can coexist at the same time, right? You don't have to create different clusters. You don't have to create assign different servers to do specific functions. They all can coexist on the same generic x86 hardware. You just partition, create the different storage volumes or spaces, and present them out as different services. So there's a lot of flexibility there. Okay. Now, how Virtuozzo protects the data is through two different methods. Firstly, is through replicas. So this is the, for those of you who are familiar with hyperconverged terminology, this is your RF, or your replication factor, right? So basically, any data block that is a replica block somewhere else in the cluster, and also through the use of erasure coding to provide an extra layer of protection. So the key difference is this, right? If you have your data, for example, ABC are your unique data blocks, replicas will create identical blocks of these three data. So you have DDD, these are your replicas, and it will spread the replicas out into other nodes in the same cluster. So that if node number 1 fails and you lose your A, there is a replica of A somewhere else. So the rule is that you cannot have the replica and the original block in the same node, because you don't want a single node to fail, right? And then bring down your main block and also your replica block. On top of that, erasure coding basically uses mathematical formulas to calculate like a checksum, or what they call an erasure code, so that if you lose your block A, you can rebuild your block A using data in block B, block C, and the checksum in the erasure code. So these two different methods of data protection really ensure that the data is very robust in the Virtuozzo platform. They have their pros and cons. So erasure coding, because it uses mathematical formulas, there is CPU compute required, so there is a small performance impact. Replicas are obviously much higher performance, but they do take up storage space. So that's where Virtuozzo gives you the choice to use different kinds of data protection method to ensure that for different storage service use cases, you have a choice of either whether you want high performance or high performance, higher cost, or low performance, lower cost. That gives you the flexibility to decide, right? So once that data is protected, it is presented out through a log structured file system. And this log structured file system basically ensures very high performance. And you can then carve out into different smaller volumes and assign these volumes to different storage services or storage interfaces. So we take the disks in the nodes, combine them and protect them using replicas or erasure coding, carve out those disks into smaller chunks or volumes, and assign the volumes to different storage interfaces or services. So as you can see, from the same physical hardware with the same physical disk, we can actually build many different storage services, including storage for your VM, storage for iSCSI, SAN, file server, and object storage. And that's how Virtuozzo really takes low-cost servers and presents it out as different storage services. Now, how it works is basically Virtuozzo is designed to be able to tolerate a failure of an entire node with no data loss and no storage service disruption. So your data is spread across into different nodes, right? And each of the nodes, there will be a what we call the replica chunks. So if any one of the nodes fails and one chunk of data is gone, you can either still access the data through the replica chunks or access the data through the erasure coding protection. So any single failure of a node will not result in downtime, no storage failure, no VM failure. Okay, so what we offer customers is basically the ability to replace VMware, not only to replace VMware, but to replace the entire VMware stack, to provide a high performance private cloud for data analytics, and to really give you the full platform to eventually deliver a full infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, anything as a service, right, for entire enterprise customers' needs. Comparing with VMware, obviously Virtuozzo provides higher performance at a lower cost and a much, much easier experience of not having to deploy different licenses and do integration. Everything is pre-integrated. Comparing to Nutanix, which is also a very popular platform for VMware replacement, Virtuozzo provides better scalability, much easier management, because not only is it a single pane of glass management, it also provides all the full OpenStack API. Virtuozzo is much more cost efficient than VMware. And in fact, Virtuozzo gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of hardware, because Nutanix today does force you to adopt certain brand of hardware and certain specific models that are certified to run Nutanix, and Virtuozzo does not require that. So for that reason, many customers have chosen to move off VMware into Virtuozzo, and here are some of the customers that have done that, right? And I really want to share with you some of the success stories Virtuozzo has in the Asia Pacific region. So the first one is, and this is probably my favorite, is Ramly Burger. And I think anybody who is Malaysian or Singaporean will know this brand. Is a much beloved brand of food products from Malaysia. So Ramly were VMware users, and they're not a huge company. I would say they are small medium enterprise. All right, and they were hit by the VMware changes. They were looking for a way to move off VMware, but they didn't have the budget to change their hardware. They wanted to keep their hardware investments. So they evaluated several, including Hyper-V and Proxmox, which is very popular. And eventually they chose Virtuozzo because not only did it meet their VMware requirements, they did not have to change the hardware, and it was very, very easy to use. So for them, it was a win-win-win, right? But not only small, medium customers, we have large international companies like Tata Motors, based out of India, who chose to move their VMware platform into Virtuozzo, and even some of the largest banks, right? So Krung Thai Bank in Thailand is the second largest bank in Thailand by asset, and they are running Virtuozzo for their internet banking and their cloud requirements. So this is a bank running Virtuozzo in production for database as a service, for Kubernetes applications, for their banking applications. So if nothing else, right, Virtuozzo has the highest confidence of even our regional banking and finance customers. So what Arrosoft has also done to simplify our customers and partners move to Virtuozzo is that we created a tool called Cloud Any that provides simplified migration from any platform into Virtuozzo. So not only can you migrate VMware into Virtuozzo, you can migrate public cloud platforms into Virtuozzo. You can even do DR between different platforms. So Cloud Any was designed to provide migration services, right? From VMware to Virtuozzo or any cloud, any to any cloud, and that includes disaster recovery as well. We can do simplified legacy hardware or application migration into Virtuozzo, or even offline migration. If your customer has very large amount of data, it's too expensive or too slow to migrate over the network or over a wide area network, we can actually do a offline migration into physical disk, physically ship the disk, and then migrate it into Virtuozzo. So there are many different ways we can use Cloud Any. And the best part about Cloud Any is that it is fully integrated with Virtuozzo today. And you can do even VMware agentless migration. So that means if you're running on a VMware environment and you don't want to install migration agents into the VM, we can have Cloud Any integrate through VMware APIs and replicate that VM into your Virtuozzo cloud, and then cut over into the Virtuozzo cloud so that you do not need to reinstall the VM, you do not need to reinstall the applications, you do not need to reinstall the data or to redo the application settings. It is a one-to-one migration of anything in your VM, in your VMware environment, inside Virtuozzo. So with that, I'd like to kind of end the presentation here. I know we've taken up quite a lot of time. I really do appreciate your time coming to this session. I hope we have managed to share with you how Virtuozzo can be the ideal platform for your VMware replacement project, and also how Arrosoft has gone the extra step to think about the software and the tools that you need to help you with your journey to migrate VMware into Virtuozzo. So thank you so much, and with that, I'll pass the floor back to Angel.
Thank you, Eric. We have a few questions here, so we'll be jumping into our Q&A session now. So the first question is, please mention about the licensing model.
Okay, so Virtuozzo is licensed based on two aspects. The license based on per core and also based on the storage size.
Okay. Next question, related to the VPN, does this feature able to integrate with Active Directory?
I'm not sure how VPN integrates with Active Directory. I'll have to double check on that for you. So can we park this question, and then I will find out and reply you via email.
Okay. Next question, where can I see the list of Virtuozzo partners in different countries?
You can go to the Virtuozzo website. They do have a list of their partners. If there's a certain country that you would like to find out more, we can also find out more for you.
Okay. And then I'm not sure if I'm reading this question right.
I get this question. So what about other protocols for S3 for object storage, or are they only supporting S3? So today is S3 only.
Okay. The next question is a bit long. How do we calculate Windows Server SQL license in Virtuozzo?
Microsoft licensing in Virtuozzo will not change. It is the same like any virtual environment or hyperconverged environment. So Microsoft licensing for those environments will be the same. Same as Virtuozzo.
Okay. There's actually two other parts of the question. Not sure if you saw. Windows.
Same covered.
Okay, sure. And then how long has Rumley migrated to Virtuozzo? More than a year?
Yeah, more than a year.
Do we have perpetual license option?
Perpetual or not perpetual?
Perpetual. No, there is no perpetual option license for Virtuozzo.
And for the last one, for on-prem, will the deployment based on hardware plus OS plus Virtuozzo?
So Virtuozzo will install as bare metal. So if you have existing hardware and your hardware supports Red Hat Enterprise Linux 9, I believe, you do not need to change the hardware. Okay. On the bare metal hardware, it does not require an OS. So on the bare metal hardware, you would just install the Virtuozzo platform. The Virtuozzo platform is complete with its own OS already. So there is no need for hardware. If your current hardware is supporting Red Hat Linux 9, there's no need for any additional OS, just the Virtuozzo license.
Okay. Seems like that's the last question we have. Thank you so much, Eric, for answering those questions. If anyone, oh wait, sorry, there's one more. Do we need a separate license for the RHEL?
No, you don't. You don't need to buy a separate license for the Red Hat Enterprise.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for your time. Thank you for coming today to our webinar. Just a reminder to fill out the survey that will pop out on your browser once the webinar session ends. Enjoy your lunchtime and have a nice day.